What Robert Saltzman is perceptions, feelings, thoughts, emotions, beliefs. I can't stand outside of myself and judge anything. This is it. What the caterpillar calls my death, the rest of the world calls a butterfly. Robert's experience is that Robert has to keep dying. You're just distracted from seeing this thing. It's very clear. The story we tell ourselves is really buffed up. If I could see myself without that story, everything would really be okay. But it's just scary. Because you don't know what will happen when you awaken. You don't know. In my case, I lost my art career. It was gone. It went away. I'm not sorry it went away. I don't really recommend this to anyone. If you are happy in the life you have now, don't try to awaken. You won't like it. It's only for people who really feel that something is not as it should be. Who am I? Who is this I that is dissatisfied? But once you ask yourself that question, it's a big question, and it may not end for quite a while, and you may have to go through a lot before you get an answer to that, if you ever do. I can't make you awaken. I can manifest that, manifest it constantly. And then when you start asking me about it, I can tell you what it isn't. And then when you come to me claiming to be awake, which is what happens, I can tell you, no, you're not. This isn't it. You may think it's it. You may feel good. You may think you're better than the people around you, but that's not it. What can be known and how can it be known? That's what each human being needs to find out, assuming that that person wants to be what we're calling awake. The secret is in there. If I could only decipher it and decode it enough. Really? You believe that? I'm not criticizing the teachers. They have a role to play, and the role to play is to keep you entertained so that you don't awaken. That's why people pay the money. They don't want to get into something really deep. People sitting on a stage describing how blissful it is to be awake. No, it isn't. They believe they're doing something good. They believe they have found something and they want to share it. And they're lying, but they're making a living. And I understand that because it's quite painful actually to see things as they are. It's not such an easy matter. we actually don't know what any of this is. No one knows how any of this got here. None of it. May call that not knowing God, but hanging a name on the incomprehensible does not make it real. It doesn't make it any realer than it is, and it doesn't explain anything. Nobody knows anything about how any of this got here, where it's going, what's it for, what it is. None of that. That's unknown. In the moment that one really understands human limitation and stops imagining that Ramana or whoever got it really knows, really knew, as soon as that fantasy, I call it, disappears, you are awake and you won't be going back to sleep anymore. A lot of people say they want to be awake, but they really don't want that. What they want to do is improve the life they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't criticize that. It's fine. If that's what you want, and you know that's what you want, you won't become confused. I only have one question. What's wrong with now? What's wrong with waking up right now? Why should I give up this one life I have? Why should I spend this life seeking when I can live? And instead of dealing with my pain by getting on a path with a promise that if I follow this eventually, then I'll feel okay at the end. Maybe there's a way to feel okay about it right now. Maybe I've never even tried that. This is it. The next moment will be something else. It keeps changing, it keeps flowing. There isn't anything else. And yet I'm telling you that I have no questions and I'm satisfied. There's nothing else. I can't become something. That would never occur to me. This moment is so rich. This moment is amazing. It really is.
Two of you. No.
Cue me, Ricardo. Oh, okay, that's great. It's a rather informal introduction to tonight's meeting, which is the 8th meeting in this series of 10 meetings in the Todos Santos gathering, virtual gathering 2021. I'm Robert Saltzman, and with me I have a stellar panel. Israel Sushman and his wife Nancy. Ricardo Madrasso is managing this event. engineering it. I have Howard Peck, Michael Markham, Morgan,
Caraway,
Morgan Caraway. Yes, so sorry.
the world famous.
And Sabine. Hi, Sabine. So Sabine, where are you? You're in Australia, yes?
Yes, I'm still in Australia. We
Oh.
are still around, so we haven't sank as yet.
How about you, Morgan? Where are you located right now?
North of Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains.
Oh, sounds good.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
Is it snowy there at all?
No, very warm winter or fall so far. I don't know. Hopefully we will get some. I love the snow, etc.
Mm.
Michael Markham, if I remember correctly, you're in Central California somewhere on the coast. Is that right?
Yes, a little town on the central coast called Cambria. It's right between-
That's a beautiful place. I remember it for its driftwood.
Ah, yes. Yes, we have that.
Yeah. Howard Peck, where are you located?
We're north of Philadelphia,
Oh, good.
towards the Pocono Mountains, not quite there, but in that direction.
So East Coast. All right, let me just check to see if anyone else is trying to get into the meeting. No. All right, we're good.
We're
So-
in Santa Fe, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, I'm sorry, I left you out on the yeah, I bet you got some snow there now, yes?
Not yet. We live out in El Dorado, and I assume you know the area because you used to live
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah, El Dorado is kind of deserty. It's nice out there.
Flat.
We're having a beautiful sunset right now.
Yeah, we get them. Great view, 100-mile view from my office window here. So
Mm,
we moved here from LA 5 years ago.
nice. Well, I'm not going to start with a statement tonight, as I sometimes do. I think I'm going to begin with Morgan. Morgan, you have a special interest, which is ecological. And you have a critique, which I enjoy, which says that people get wrapped up in spirituality and they forget what's really important. And I wonder if you could speak on that for a bit.
Sure. Thank you for asking. I live off grid. I build houses out of earth. In fact, tonight I'm speaking to you all from a tiny house that I built a few years ago. And, I think I told you before, Robert, and you're probably aware, for a while I was really into the non-duality thing. I told you my first exposure was Tony Parsons' As It Is book, and that sort of felt profound to me, and that kind of got me started on it. And before long, I was into Nisargadatta, Ramana, etc., very heavily. And I wrote a book in 2009, published in 2011 by Non-Duality Press, called Blessed Disillusionment. So anyway, I had internalized a lot of those non-duality ideas, and I was very much part of that culture. And in 2012, one day while I was washing dishes, I had the spontaneous, profound realization that I didn't know anything for certain, anything. It shattered my world. It was kind of a reset button, it felt like at the time. But anyway, the years after that, I kind of started coming into my own way of seeing life and seeing things without those non-duality concepts, I think, being central. And I've realized for a long time how central and how important ecology is to us as living, breathing beings. So I find, unfortunately, so much in spiritual culture that denies the importance of what is called the material world, denies the importance of ultimately nature and the physical reality of our existence as beings. I wrote my book Ecological Awakening in 20 what was that? 20, I think 16 is when I published it. And my attempt was to reach out to spiritual people and also say, hey, this is also important, ecology, our connection to the environment. If that isn't applied non-duality or, applied directly right there in front of you, then I don't know what is. But anyway, I just found a lot of resistance, unfortunately, in many of my spiritual friends, because I feel like you get this idea that you are some kind of trans-physical consciousness. You are some non-physical being. And then you kind of live from that little ivory tower, so to speak, and you're just kind of get more complacent is what I've seen in people who usually get deep into those concepts. You become more complacent, and you might feel more kind of distanced from life and kind of out of it and beyond it. But I say all of us here right now on this meeting, and anyone who will ever watch it, you're a living, breathing animal from all evidence. Take that air away from you for a few minutes and you're unconscious. Take it away from you for a few more minutes and you're dead. So to me, the main thing I try to get to is the thing of the moment that's really going on is we've got to wake up to what we're doing to this planet. Now, we don't have to. And honestly, I think there's a good bit that's against us waking up, meaning we have this ego identification. It's a small, narrow thing, and it's about survival. And it misses the big picture, and that's the way the ego is set up. It's not a big picture kind of focus. It's a very narrow thing. It's not looking at the big picture. So I realized that in trying to wake people up to the realization that we are part of this beautiful planet and universe, and we share its fate, I realized that the ego, it's more interested in how am I going to survive today? How am I going to eat? How am I going to pay my bills? And, I don't know if I'll ever be able to affect much change, but I feel compelled to. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that's working against us in surviving as a species is what's called the problem of the commons. And the commons was this grassy area in the middle of town where people could graze their sheep. And as long as someone just brought a sheep or two, there was no problem. The sheep would eat and the grass would grow back. But when people started to feel maybe I could bring 10 or 15 sheep, or maybe even 100 and make out better.
Yeah.
Yes. And
or
so,
I can start cutting the grass and bagging it.
yeah,
Then I'll sell it to the next person who comes.
that's so the commons area, to protect them, which is the atmosphere and the oceans and all of this, whether we share in common, and there's no cost to use them in money.
Yeah.
Those tend to get polluted quickly and destroyed quickly because the incentives are in the wrong direction. Whereas if it's my little part of the world, I might protect everything that's inside.
Right.
And so no one seems, this has been known for a couple of 100 years philosophically as the problem of the commons, but no one seems to have an answer for it at all.
Well, there's multiple issues. I had a friend the other day saying it's all about plastics, microplastics, and what they're doing to the environment. But as I said, you're probably aware, Robert, I feel like everything we experience and everything we are is nature. And to me, part of it is this focus, this, I've got to keep this body alive. I got to pay my bills. That's what the billionaires are doing. People amassing incredible amounts of wealth. They are in this survival program that we all are. I'm not saying I'm outside of it either. So it's very narrow focus. Like if you tell people the truth about what we're doing to the earth, that is very threatening to our sense of peace and well-being. So it scares them and they can't absorb that message. So it's kind of I agree with you. I don't really know exactly what we're going to do. I do think certain changes in the material culture can help. Don't try to wake people up, because a lot of what we are naturally is what you could call sleep. And it is very small. It's a very narrow thing. So, but if we can change the material culture and maybe education, I think education is important in there too.
Mm.
You know, so we'll see. I'm going to do what I can, and I know it won't be enough, and that's all right.
That sounds good. I wonder who else would like to comment on that proposition or anything else. We're open here to comments, questions, or any rant. Yeah, speak up, Michael. You don't need to raise your hand.
I wrote recently on a forum that if you want to change the world, you'd better bring your lunch. We can see this objectifying brain, mind, can see innumerable problems. It's its nature to seek out and solve what it sees as problems. And the world's issues are so complex that I love the idea of the commons that when they first came to this country, that meadow, that common meadow seemed like such a good idea. And in practice, it seemed it should be, but it's not. It's such a huge force driving these things. Force is interrelated that we can never understand. Political views is to assume that we could have a belief about which political view would be more productive or better is egoic grandiosity. That no one knows how a government works. The Democrats aren't right. The Republicans aren't right. They have a bunch of beliefs and opinions about ideas. All ideas are about things, and there are no separate things. Things exist only in the naming of them. So when we tackle the world's problems, it becomes, and not that we have a choice. No one has a choice. But here it's developed awareness, whatever / consciousness, whatever term we use, is developed a laissez-faire, flowing along with whatever happens without trying to push any rivers. Granted, it's a much easier lifestyle than taking on the complexities of the world's problems. Microplastic is a problem. Microorganisms eat it, and big organisms eat little organisms, and it's going to be a problem. But to assume that we can get the world to go along with what we see as the problem, I think it's inevitable that a species will create its own its own end. Somebody said there's a tiny window in between the time we can relate to people or alien entities on other planets and the time they develop the ability to destroy themselves. We are survival-based organisms. We don't get along. We evolved in small tribes. The world will not unite into one happy world. Israeli and the Jewish nations have shown us a great deal about the nature of humanity. And that doesn't mean it's defeatist, but I'm suggesting that it's impossible for, excuse me, the individual to develop a mindset that flows along with whatever is arising. And I know that sounds probably hollow to a lot of people. But it seems to me that that's the most wonderful way to live.
So in that, what you have to also acknowledge, or you don't have to, But I would say sometimes what is happening is action. In a river, you could use that. Apparently, we don't think a river has will to force itself in a certain direction. It's natural forces in motion. I would argue, and some may argue the opposite side, but we're all natural forces in motion, all of us.
I think any belief about our condition is based on self-referential, an accumulation of self-referential data points. Any belief is nebulous and essentially a belief, there's no separate events. And when there's no separate things, it's hard to find anything to hold on to when everything is falling into everything. Again, these are just beliefs, but they're a way this particular belief system experiences the world as knowing nothing. We can know nothing. We can at best describe. We mistake understanding. For description. All we can do is describe. I knew a man who wrote The World's Authority on Ants. He wrote lots of books on ants. At the end of his life, he knew nothing about ants. He had just described their behavior. But he knew nothing about ants.
But you do know, if you take a plastic bag and duct tape it over your head, at least from evidence that we have, within minutes, your consciousness will cease. A short time after, you will be dead. There's certain facts as we experience this universe. For example, we take water to survive. We take oxygen as a living being. So, yes, I can acknowledge none of us knows really anything absolutely. We don't know what any of this is. We could be in a strange computer simulation, or it could be disembodied consciousness hanging out in the void, just sending these scintillating fractals of experience off, whatever. We can't speak to all those things. But to me, when I look at humanity, when I look at us, what I see is an animal that is very wrapped up in concepts. And therein lies probably one of the most interesting things about us, and one of the ways it's easiest for us to deceive ourselves. What makes it so easy for us to deceive ourselves are to be programmed in a certain way. So I hear what you're saying. Like, what I've endeavored recently is to try to be at peace with my life as it is in the moment, including the things that are less than desirable, or including the parts of me that aren't a saint, or the parts of me that could be labeled imperfect. I do see it all as this, whatever this is, it's all it.
What if there were no it? What if even it is an objectification of our imagined world? What if we can never know anything about who or what we are? What if no one ever has or ever will?
You still have your experience regardless, though. Whether you say it's this, it's that, whatever you name the things in your experience, it still is what it is.
Well, is it though? In our nighttime dreams, we think those are real. The people seem real. The automobiles, the cars, the buildings, the sky, all seem so real.
I'm talking about your experience, though. I'm not saying it's real or unreal, but I'm saying your experience is what it is. You could say it may be just a movement of light or what have you, but it is what it is, regardless of how we define it.
Well, let me jump in here at this point. I'd like to get some other views from some of the other people. Before doing so, I just want to announce to people who are watching this that we have 2 meetings tomorrow, and the final meeting, number 10, that takes place at 7 p.m. Eastern time, is open to anyone, unlike these 9 meetings that have a fixed panel. If you feel like jumping in here and participating, go to my web page, just Google my name and you'll find the webpage. And the gathering page there has the link, the Zoom link for the meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's an invitation to everyone. So oh, really? Okay, I invited him. I forgot about that. Wrong week. Are you in, Carson? I don't see him. Let's see. I hope he hasn't given up. Good
Don't
for-
give up, Carson.
There's Carson. Hi, Carson. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. That was my fuck up. You can turn on your mic and join the meeting. Turn on your video. Carson was at the meeting a couple of days ago and had some beautiful things to say, some nice poetry of his that he read. It was great. So far, turn on your mic, Carson. Turn on your video. We're not seeing you or hearing you. So while he does that, Howard, it's nice to see you again. And remember, you and I met in a Zoom meeting long ago, and you told me that I had a sense of humor about all this, and you appreciated that.
Terrific sense of humor. Yes, you've realized that it's a necessity, I think, as we go down this path.
Yeah, if we don't laugh, we're just going to be crying. I mean, I don't see too much middle ground.
Right.
I mean, really, the situation is rather dire. We don't know anything except that we probably aren't going to last much longer, and the end is not pretty most of the time. Can be, but most of the time it isn't. And that's what we're really looking at. There's Carson. Good, got the mic on. And hi, Carson.
Hi, guys. I think I'm set up.
All right.
Okay, good.
So, I was just expatiating on the transitory nature of human existence and the tragic nature of understanding that one is has an expiration date. And when that happens, no one will really care unless you have a loved one who really cares. But for everyone else, it's burial at sea. They just toss you overboard and the ship sails on, and tomorrow they're into the next thing. So that takes care of the self-importance. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. They put you in the ground and then they go have lunch and life goes on.
See, knowing that, there's nothing much to do except laugh and enjoy oneself.
Be merry.
Yeah.
You're married, yes?
Oh, me? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm deep in it, sir.
Okay.
I have a 7-year-old boy. I'm deep in it.
That's great. Well, I've got a 49-year-old boy. He's going to come down for Christmas.
Cool.
With my
I didn't know you were a daddy.
I am a daddy and a granddaddy.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats, sir. Congrats.
Thank you very much. So, Carson, what do you have to bring to us tonight? More poetry?
I could do that.
Okay, why don't you prepare one while I continue speaking with Howard. So that impressed me, Howard. When this, I guess this Zoom meeting was a couple of years ago, and you're the first person who ever said that to me. Gee, Robert, you know, it's kind of nice that you laugh about all this stuff.
Interesting to hear, 'cause to me, your sense of humor is very apparent, and it's I find enjoyable. Of course, you also go on the far end as well.
To me, it's just, I can't do without it. I don't know how I would possibly face this mess.
Yeah.
Without seeing the absurdity of imagining that we can figure all this out when it's happening so fast we can't even keep up with it, much less figure it out. You know, that's where I am with it. Okay, Carson, I'm going to give you a shot. I like your poetry, so hit us with it.
Well, I don't have another one of mine, but
Stream
I have
of
one.
consciousness.
I have one from Graham Edge, who was the drummer for the Moody Blues. When the white eagle of the north is flying overhead, and the browns, reds, and golds of autumn lie in the gutter dead, Remember then the summer birds with wings of fire flaming, come to witness spring's new hope, born of leaves decaying. As new life will come from death, love will come at leisure. Love of life, and giving without measure, gives in return the wondrous yearn of a promise almost seen. Live hand in hand, and together we'll stand on the threshold of a dream.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I like that guy.
Have
Well-
you read much Robinson Jeffers,
No, I haven't heard of him.
the poet of California? He was an interesting one. He has a good one on vultures, and it would be a good one to find possibly and read. It's about death, of course. But yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
Every now and then when I'm out for a long walk, I see vultures circling overhead.
You want me to read it?
I
Want me to
wonder if
find
they
it,
do-
Robert?
And I
I can find
wonder,
it.
I see vultures circling overhead, and I wonder if they know something I don't.
Chet, do you want me to read Vulture for you? It's a good one.
Sure.
I had walked since dawn and lay down to rest on a bare hillside. Above the ocean, I saw through half-shut eyelids a vulture wheeling high up in heaven. And presently it passed again, but lower and nearer, its orbit narrowing. I understood then that I was under inspection. I lay death still and heard the flight feathers whistle above me and make their circle and come nearer. I could see the naked red head between the great wings, bare downward staring. I said, my dear bird, we are wasting time here. These old bones will still work. They are not for you. But how beautiful he looked, gliding down on those great sails. Way in the
I've lost audio.
Can't hear.
Yeah, we've lost your audio.
Oh.
So, Israel, let me throw it over to you and Nancy. And I'm wondering what you bring to the meeting tonight.
My God. I don't know what we bring to the meeting, but we've been doing this for a while. Nancy and I met in an ashram kitchen in Santa Monica in 1982, right before Muktananda died. We were big in that whole scene. I had met Muktananda 10 years earlier. I was living in Israel. I'd taken all the acid, read all the books, Tim Leary and Huxley and Ramdas. The book hadn't even come out yet. I heard a tape when I was living in Israel. I said, gave acid to his guru and it didn't do anything to him. So I want to find a guru like that, because I'm tired of the ups and downs of the acid trips. And I had all these experiences. And, one thing led to another. I went overland from Istanbul to Delhi, lived in India, City Yoga Ashram for a year and a half, and followed him around all over the country in different ashrams. And anyway, we met. He died. The new guru wasn't. She was a trip. Anyway, it got weird. We left. Pretty much stayed with that kind of thing for a while. Did a lot of psychotherapy. I've done Gestalt, bioenergetics, Neo-Reiki, and Jungian. Got involved after the ashram and living a very strict life. First I was a hippie. It was all wild and crazy, sex, drugs, rock and roll, do whatever you want. Then I went in the ashram, it's all meditate, be celibate, strict. Then I got out of the ashram and started dealing coke and Topanga. So I, one extreme to the other. Then I got back into a 12-step program, which strict again. Got sober. It took me a while. I've got almost 20 years now, coming up on 21. And got into Judaism about 25 years ago, non-Orthodox, mostly more of a symbolic study of this stuff, not a belief system. Even the rabbi I study with claims all this is axioms, can't be proven. We choose to do this. There's a lot of value in it, even though all the supernatural stuff, we know that's not true. So I'm not involved in any of that stuff, you know. Although I've hung out with those people, I find Talmud study very, very good for the mind in some way. Like, how do they arrive at this stuff? I'm also interested in why ancient people thought the way they did. You know, the fact that the Bible exists doesn't mean we have to take it literally now, but for those people, it was very important. So there's anthropology, philosophical anthropology, you know, all that. And I'm interested in that. I'm interested in Jungian stuff. I read a lot of philosophy. You know, I kind of went back to the West after all the guru abuse. And then then I studied with a guy named Leonard Jacobson, who's more on your wavelength, just be present. But, you know, he charges for his stuff and you don't. And you've got these great books and you seem to like have kind of distilled the essence of it all, you know. I belong to a Nisargadatta study group. So we read him every week. And you know, what you say about him, I totally get. You know, he came out of a Hindu culture, so that's his language. But a lot of the stuff he says is pretty profound and kind of lines up with what you teach. So that's where we're at right now. I'm just playing around with this stuff. I don't think any of it's true. Same thing with politics. I'm kind of in the middle with a lot of it. I'm a big environmentalist, but you know, I haven't really got on the progressive far left bandwagon either. Although I'm very amazed at some of my friends though, because they'll be studying Nisargadatta, but before and after they're like screaming at Trump and how they lost sleep over thinking about him, and like, how can you study Nisargadatta and be upset about American politics, you know, knowing what we know?
What would you say about that? Why? How?
Because ultimately, like you say, we don't have the big picture. I don't know what the best form of government is. You know, I think things should evolve. And actually, that's what a lot of conservative thinkers, you know, back in the Enlightenment times said, you know, don't push the river. You know, it's good to see what's wrong and try to make changes, but you don't need to have a revolution and kill a bunch of people over it. You know, Edmund Burke and the French Revolution, he wrote a book about. So we don't need to burn things down to affect change. And, you know, we can define the problem without saying this is the only solution. That's what I find that politics does. They define problems and they say, it's got to be this solution, and that's it. And we, you know, your solution's wrong, my solution's right. And here we are.
Well, so in my mind, there's a connection between somebody who would make a hero out of a guru and somebody who would make a hero out of Donald Trump. Pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't see much difference. What it is you've made someone an authority on your experience, and what they say is worth more than what you feel. What I find that so odd. I mean, I can't find it in myself at all. I just don't see it. You know, Nisargadatta is great. He's a very smart guy and said some good things, but I don't know if there's any absolute. You know, that was his idea. I certainly don't believe him just because he says the absolute. I don't know if there is an absolute. Maybe this is all there is. We don't know what it is, as everyone seems to agree. We don't know anything, you know. We're here. And so, I mean, Michael Markham said that right off the bat. First thing, I don't know anything. We don't know anything. And Morgan was saying that.
I like to make an observation on what Israel said, if I could. You said after your involvement with Muktananda, you said it got weird and we left. And that's pretty much what happened to all the major gurus in the 70s. They all came over with these potent teachings. They were all knowing, Shaktipat from Muktananda, and all these other powers. But when it came down to it, there was oftentimes scandal and corruption and no air that also that became enlightened and continued this sacred teaching, if it was that sacred and that real, it would be continued, but it all pretty much withered away, which speaks volumes to that nature of teaching and the guru-disciple relationship.
Cult of the personality, yes, cult of the personality.
Yeah, it just withers away.
Oh, yeah, well, that came up in the previous meeting because I've been received a number of requests this week from people who have been watching these live streams to do this on a regular basis. Once a week was suggested. And when I look into it, I don't think so. That's not really what I was hoping to set up. That's old school. That's 20th century bullshit. I think now we really need to think for ourselves. And if I can encourage that, great. But I don't think you need to hear it every week. If you do, there's serious problems.
There's an adage in business that if two people always agree, one of them is unnecessary. That seems true to me.
That'll be me. I agree with myself, so I'm on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So which one is unnecessary? Huh?
It's great to be unnecessary. It's so relaxing. So Sabine, I want to throw it your way, Sabine. Give us something from us.
Sabine.
It's Sunday morning in Melbourne.
Yes, in Melbourne. It's sunny day. It's nice weather, like 22 degrees, whatever it means in Fahrenheit. Yeah, life is still the same, spontaneous in Melbourne, regardless of what's happening apparently in Parliament. I'd say like, yeah, basically my not knowing is probably based on Nisargadatta's teachings. That's what helped me here. So I didn't have a pleasure of visiting any ashrams or any other teachers, but my own teacher who came from Nisargadatta. So how it's here, basically, I feel I have no control, like Sabine has no control. Basically, life is like sort of ing. Everything is just continuously happening as it's happening, like experiencing, and blood is flowing, and this mouth is blabbing. I don't know what's talking here. Everything's happening by itself. If I had a choice, I would make myself probably whatever, be smarter or richer or healthier, which is number one. And yeah, basically, to me, it's like a river flowing. A river flows and it doesn't say, oh, there is a falling tree and it doesn't dwell on it. Or, there was a bucket of water that was spilled on the bank, and I lost some water and it doesn't dwell on it. River flows and doesn't think about some mudslide that might happen ahead. It keeps flowing. Seeming problem with us people, the thought gets caught into something and it just dwells on it and thinks about a bucket of spilled water on the bank. And it suffers and feeds it and charges it. I'm not saying it's not happening still from time to time, but it's kind of things come and go. Sometimes what happened 5 minutes ago, I forget about it. I can't remember past as much. Future, like there's no anxiety as much. It's kind of smoother flow, like feelings, emotions still arise. And there is kind of natural compassion, more of that. But I had no say in that. So I didn't have to be compassionate. I didn't have to meditate. I didn't have to take drugs, none of it, to be what I am, because everything was already here, whether I claim it or not. So there is nothing wrong. And I want to touch base on what you mentioned before about politicians. It just came to me that television was kind of disturbing. Watching mainstream media was disturbing. And sometimes, you know, think like, I don't know what's happening in America. As Nisargadatta used to say, I don't know how weather is America. I can tell you about the weather here now. I'm saying, like, when people talked about Trump, and I was like, and I saw him before he became a president, and like, he was just a businessman. I thought, oh my God, you know, just, you know, I was a person at the time, I think, yeah, when I saw him. And he came with Robert, I went to see Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, anyway, so Donald Trump just talked about the roads and him, like, he was like, he's not, he was going to be, you know, he wanted to become a president. I'm like, it won't happen, but it happened. But like, when I go to the bathroom in the morning, Trump isn't there. So it just, you know, what I have to do happens. So unless you think about Trump, Trump isn't there, you know. To me, all of this in our head, it's kind of in the thoughts, in like in the head, in my mind, it's just in images. Like, we imagine things. So I imagine something is wrong. And, you know, I might imagine something is wrong with my life. And yes, and there could be a significant event. Someone might die, you know, or someone might leave you. And, you know, tears will be there, and you can't control that. And trying to control it, it's like resistance. And a tree, if it resists the wind, it breaks if it goes the opposite direction. So, you know, you cannot stop grieving. I've heard someone giving practice to someone to say how to stop grieving, and what do you find good, like, find something for you. Finding something for you is finding something for me, ego, or the center, you know. Just it's pointless to give practical advice of what to do for me. Like, it's like a reward. I don't have to cook for two people now. I have to cook for one person. And, you know, grieving is there. You can't stop feelings arising, emotions. It's pointless. And I'll just finish this. I talk too much. I like what Nisargadatta said. This message is not for a debate. And, you know, he used to say to people, you can't, you guys, you take the room here on this floor, just get out. Like 6-8 meetings, they're enough, because the seed gets planted. This is the point. Like what he says, it's you are already what you are. Everything is as it is. The seed gets planted and it blooms. Either it doesn't bloom, but it's still the seed, meaning, you know, it's already as it is. Yeah, so that's how I see it.
Well,
And I want to thank you for everything you do, by the way, Robert, and yeah, for doing this. Yeah.
yes, no, I'm sorry, I stepped on the last line there, but I was so enthusiastic. Music to my ears. You always have been since the first time I ever heard you speaking this way.
Oh, ditto.
I think so. I mean, that's the stripped down version, and it works great for me. That's how I see it too. We're just here. We're here. We're all doing the best we can.
Yeah.
To make a big deal out of it as if it's some kind of holy work or something, that just cuts the heart right out of it.
May I just say this? It is heart to heart, not head to head.
Right.
And I know there was a TM Maharishi, because I lived with someone who followed Maharishi for a long time. And apparently his final secret when you pay the most of your money is think your mantra in your heart. That's all there was. But if you start talking from the heart, and people on Facebook, if they came from the heart, there wouldn't be so much like a ramp fight, you know. I say, you know, come from the heart, and maybe do not say something you don't want to be said to yourself. I see people sharing their stuff on other people's, you know, threads. And I know I had that happening when I was promoting my teacher. I stopped doing that a few years ago, because I see if you don't continue doing this on a regular basis every day, it won't turn into a cult. So I'm glad you're doing this way. I really appreciate your message, and your people I really like the people who participate in this. They seem to me quite wise, and they're just a bunch of lovely, lovely people. all I can say. And thank you for doing this, Robert.
Thank you, Sabine. That is my exact experience. Just speaking from the heart. I'm just an ordinary human like all of us with the same feelings and the same vulnerabilities, you know, we all are. No one can jump that fence. I mean, we're human, we're animals. We have programmed to want acceptance and to be understood, and all of this comes with the DNA. So, yeah. And so I just feel like, let's deal with that and not be talking about some theoretical approach that might make you more than human. Seems like a weird thing to do with one's brain for 70 or 80 years, but some people are into it. But I'm not. And what I say to people is, this is awake. This other awake is in your that's your imagination. You fantasize something based on reports that you cannot verify.
Mhm.
And often the person you think you understand so well, you do not understand. You have your version. Nisargadatta was interviewed. I like Nisargadatta. He was interviewed. Friedman was the only, Friedman was the only one who ever understood me, he said. The others all misunderstood and they left. And that's one person out of who knows how many people say they can speak about Nisargadatta because they used to sit at his feet or something. No, that's not it. It's not, this is not biographical. You got it back then like Maurice, or you left thinking that your fantasy of awake is awake. And then you go into California where the money is and you start explaining to people what awake is.
I met Maurice Friedman. I was at his apartment in Bombay in 73.
Yeah, what was it like?
Give us
Yes,
the dirt. Give us
please.
the real dirt.
Yes,
He was
I love
just
him.
this old Jewish Polish dude that ended up in Israel. He got out of Germany or Poland or wherever it was during the war or before the war, and somehow he was an engineer. He worked for the Indian government.
You got to start at the beginning. I missed the first paragraph, the first sentence or two there.
He had escaped the Nazis or had gotten out sometime pre-war and came to India. He was an engineer and he worked for the Indian government. And he had a nice apartment and he used to host, seekers like us. We'd come from the ashram, but I never got to meet Nisargadatta for some reason because the teaching was too esoteric for me. I was into this worship the guru and the guru will give you grace and all that crap. And, so I missed him. And I'm kicking myself still to this day that I didn't get to see Nisargadatta.
Well, that's what Sabine was saying, that he would tell people, get the fuck out. You're taking
Right, I've seen the videos.
space here, leave. Hit the road.
You said something about not trusting, because what happens is we have an experience, like the LSD experience. So what happened? What was that? Now
These guys were great, man. They had such authority. I mean, those were the days. That was the 20th century. We're postmodern. We're postmodern now. No one can get away with that bullshit anymore.
Bentino can.
No, that's a dying profession. It's a dying profession. There's too many critics on all sides, and everyone gets to see it all on YouTube. And we're disintegrating into something much less focused.
But I have one question for you. Like I said, we have an experience, and then someone describes, oh, that means you saw Jesus, or you saw Krishna, or the white light you saw was the oneness of whatever.
Yeah, the problem that I have with it, Israel, excuse me for interrupting, but the problem I have with that is some people think I can do that I have some truth to impart.
That was going to be my question. How do I know your recounting of your experience? Yeah. How can I trust that you're saying to me something that's authentic? And, obviously you're not charging money for this. So there's one more reason I should trust you, because
that's a small reason. I could have some other advantage.
Ego.
We don't, that can't even be analyzed.
Everybody wants to be important, right? That's an ingrained thing in us. It's a survival trait. If you're seen as important, more resources and energy will be put towards your survival. So I think that's in all of us to want to be important to somebody at least.
Well, that's a big field for discussion, but I wanted to, and it's an interesting one. We could talk about that, but I wanted to go back to this other point, which is that these 20th century figures like a Nisargadatta, they had this power and authority that tradition is much deader now than it was.
Oh, sure.
100 years ago. So the point is that we're in a postmodern relationship. All the secrets are now published. They're all on the fucking internet. When I was a kid, not a kid, when I was in my 20s, I frequented this bookstore, Weiser's bookstore on 14th Street in Manhattan, or 12th Street.
In there.
Forget which now. And they had an esoteric book section, and you went back there and you searched the books looking for some, secret. What could, and you'd have to do this page by page and find.
It'd be funny if you got back there and there's a sign that says there are no books.
Yeah, well, that's where, okay, so that's what I'm focusing on here is that everyone now has it all at once. Even kids see blowjobs and stuff on their phone, young kids. There's no more secrets, not on the spiritual level, not on the pornography level. It's all been done. It's all out there, every bit of it. It's everything that could be sold has been sold. It's all exposed. It's overexposed.
Is the world?
I think what Sabine liked about the way I was talking when she first heard it, because I know what I like about you. I said so. What I imagine you liked about me is that I'm not bullshitting anybody. I'm just telling you, here I am. Ask me a question, about, and I call this awake. And other people are like horrified. Oh, Robert's on a big ego trip. No, I'm not. I'm not even on a little ego trip. That's what we could talk about, Morgan, because actually I don't seek to be important. When I look into my own heart, I'm not important. And I never,
you don't want to be important.
And I never will be, except to people who truly love me.
Yeah, but I mean, by important, I also mean love.
Wait, let me finish. To the other people who don't love me and would take care of me physically if I needed it, to everyone else, it's just burial at sea, man. And the year later, people will be bullshitting about what Robert really meant. And they'll be the authorities on it, and everyone will get into a debate. I get all that. If it unfolds that way. Not saying it's looking that way.
Well,
so once that happens, there'll be people, just let me finish this point. Just when that happens, I'll be lied about. This is my chance now to not be lied, to actually have my words be said, and then I'm here. So if you want to ask me a question about it, I'll answer the question. Otherwise, it's just delusion. It's just reports. And people either believe them or they don't, but they have no way of interrogating the speaker. The speaker's just Nisargadatta. No one can ask him a question anymore. Just a few experts think they know what he was talking about. And he said they didn't. That's all we got left of Nisargadatta, his words, if you can make sense of them, but not the people who teach Nisargadatta. They're all wiseacring.
You reminded me of a quote. Carl Jung said, "Thank God I'm Jung and not a Jungian."
Yeah, that's the same message in a few words.
Yeah.
So Nisargadatta, the point is, there is no more Nisargadatta. There are books that purport to be good translations and transcriptions of what Nisargadatta was saying. those books are pretty well trusted. So like a book that I am, that most of us believe that's how Nisargadatta said it, more or less. I've read those books and I made the sense I made of them. But I don't know what Nisargadatta, I was never inside of Nisargadatta's mind. You would have to be there with the guy, and at best you'd only get a fragment then. That's how
Right.
elusive. Okay, that's the point. This is elusive. You can't, it's the opposite of Shaktipat. You can't get it even if everybody wants to. There's no magic in it. Two people could be very open-minded and want to be understood by one another and not debate, not argue, just, I want to know how you see it, sharing. And even then, which is the best circumstances, other than a great afternoon in bed and now you're just relaxed and telling the truth, and crying maybe, that's good too. But other than that, which is what many of us have craved and never gotten enough of, in my view, we can't substitute for that, but at least we can speak honestly with one another. That's what I'm trying to bring to this conversation. What I'm saying is, I am awake in the same way that Nisargadatta was awake. I'm quite sure of it. It took me a long time to admit that. It was bit by bit and painful. And some people have seen me on video kind of being embarrassed and difficult, groping, grappling with this and all that. But that ended. And what I see now is that nobody's that big a deal. That's the point. That's what we have to get to. Nobody's special. We're humans. Everybody's got a coping mechanism of one kind or another. Nisargadatta like the brothels, I heard. I think that's accurate. So it's not a question of transcend. He didn't want to transcend his penis, for example, at all. He wanted to, enjoy.
Wear it out.
Or cigarettes. He was a smoker. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when we see that, then for me, that's important, because if someone can see me as just being an ordinary cat, which is what I really am. Robert Hall saw me that way. He and I had this wonderful friendship, and John Troy and I, same thing. He totally accepts me for the quirky cat and everything. If we can do that, that's what we can bring to one another, except like I've got this with Sabine. I get her. She doesn't have to explain anything. When she speaks that way, I just get it. I know what she's talking about. These are not complicated things, but they're hard you have to love. That's what it's about. I mean, love yourself enough to take it seriously. Don't let some guru tell you what to seek in life. They don't know what's important. Went to the brothel for sex. I think I'm doing better than that. A lot better.
I have something I'd like to offer.
If Nisargadatta saw the life I'm leading, he would have been sick. You see, that's it. You get this, right? This is stand-up comedy. I hope we all realize that, because I've now taken this hero of the 20th century, and I'm saying, you like pussy and so do I. Gee. See, if we can normalize that behavior, then we can forgive ourselves for being animals.
Well, that's it. I think that's the crux. Is human is a concept we have. And that concept looks a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. But the reality of our existence is an animal that evolved over a very long period of time with certain traits. But when you get into the spirituality ideas, you cover all that animal part up. You try to sweep it under the rug. You try to say, oh, there isn't violence in me anymore. Oh, I'm not sexual anymore. Oh, there's all these claims made about how now you're no longer an animal. You're transcendent, you're enlightened, you're Godhead, etc. But the animal, to me, this is just my view. I'm not saying this is necessarily a fact, but when I look at us, I just see an animal. We shit, we eat, we breathe, we die, we reproduce just like any other animal. And that's our reality. That's the real thing.
Well, we're apes with overdeveloped brains, basically.
Pretty
And we're
much.
constantly searching for meaning, because meaning is a survival mechanism. We need to have a story. There's a book called Maps of Meaning by Jordan Peterson. He goes into the whole neurology of the thing and what parts of your brain light up when you have a story. And the stories
Right.
are all to the tribes that you belong to. So my tribe story makes me part of that tribe. And if I don't believe the story, I'm out of the tribe. I have
That's
to go
right.
back. You get, in the ancient days, and it's still true. You can't be a progressive if you don't believe XYZ. You can't be a conservative if you don't, So people are still very tribal and still really attached to these beliefs that are so part of their survival mechanism.
Exactly. I mean, beliefs are an attempt to survive. Beliefs are an attempt to have community with those who believe the same way and to not get kicked out. And why do all of we human beings have that desire to belong? Because in nature, over the hundreds of thousands of years of our development, being alone meant death. It's a death sentence. Being on your own and not having a tribe, you're not going to last very long. So these are all deeply ingrained things in us. And it all gets covered over by all these spiritual ideas and all these other ideas that people come up with. So you end up with a very unrealistic picture of what we human beings are. And we don't know what we are. We have so much self-denial about what we are.
Well, I think as Howard was saying, having a sense of humor about it seems indispensable. It does to me. I mean, I get all that, what you're saying, and I agree with it. You can analyze it that way, and it makes sense, all of it. It's just, I think it was Sabine who said this earlier, fill me in if I got it wrong. If you're not thinking about Donald Trump, there is no Donald Trump. Who said that?
Yeah, just before. Basically, it's similar to Nisargadatta's, but someone asked him something happening in New York. He said, I can tell you what's here now, but I don't know how the weather is in New York. So it's same for me here when people talk about Trump, and I just go like, I've got like, what are you talking about? But if action needs to happen, it will happen. Like it will happen. You might take action and do something about. You might write. It might come to you. I don't like Trump. I have to say this event happened. It affected me personally because he's taken my extra tax. So you might write to Parliament. It doesn't mean we just sit here doing nothing. It seems so. Like me as a person, or congested energy, seemingly congested energy doesn't do it, but action happens the same as in the nature. When bird builds nest, it's the same with Trump. You might do something about it, or you might be cool with that. So you have no say in it. It just happens.
That's it. With any luck, he'll fall out of the nest and break his head wide open.
Yeah, it is all nature, right?
I think like that character to disappear, and then maybe all these guys who are afraid of him would relax and stop. Well, that's a long conversation. I don't want to get into it.
Robert, someone requested at some point that we talk about specifically Tony Parsons. And I only bring this up because I realize, of course, each of us has certain things we're into, certain things we're not into. Some people's messages feel right to us. Some people's messages don't. But I've taken from some of what you said, you're not a big Tony Parsons fan. And anyway, somebody was wanting a little bit more discussion on this particular topic.
Okay, what's the question?
I forget, does anybody remember that from the Depending on No Thing page? It was somehow Tony Parsons came up, and you were critiquing certain views of his or certain ideas you had of things he had shared. I mean, I thought it might be good to talk about him with Sabine here as well. I know Sabine has hung out with Tony as well as Sailor Bob, both of who personally, from my own experience, I think they seem like cool guys. They seem like awesome people. They seem totally, you know, authentic and just doing their own expression. But I don't know, somebody was just saying, I wish y'all would talk about this more with the film rolling.
Okay, I met Tony Parsons a couple of years ago. I actually went to London to see him because I watched a couple of his videos. My ex, he watched everything, but Tony was the one that actually resonated at the time. Even like if I told even Bob Adamson here, I said, if Tony Parsons was in Melbourne, I wouldn't come to see you. I would go and see Tony Parsons. Why? No, why? Because and Bob, I was honest with Bob. Bob was honest with me. Two of us were honest. Yeah, there's lots of cockatooing there, and there's lots of dishonesty with people sitting in these meetings, parroting. I just don't like that style of teaching, but it could be working. It worked here. Although it annoyed me when people were allowed, if you pay $20 to hear someone talk, you don't want to hear parrots talk. I want someone to ask them question. I want someone to respond. When I ask a question, I want them to respond to me because I paid $40 for myself and my ex to it cost me. I mean, it cost me these free 4 months. Then later on, I started recording. I was very grateful. I was very excited.
Let me just ask you to clarify. Are you talking about Bob right now, or
this
Tony?
is Bob? Sorry, this was
Okay.
Bob because I live in Melbourne. I went to see Bob. Bob was true deal, so I was taken there. But now, when I didn't need to see Tony, I went to see Tony a couple of years ago, I'll tell you this, he's a lovely guy. Why I like him, I like his humor. I like his wife, and his wife, it's similar to Robert's wife, just very respectful towards she's not sticky nose. She doesn't run in front of Tony to teach instead of Tony. You just need to see that to believe it. There's so much respect. They're married for a long time. It's not like she's not a crazy spiritual cuckoo. She's as humble. She's very humble. I could just keep hugging her all day. You know, she's just humble, gorgeous. She also has her people. She just helps Tony, and she's there for Tony if he needs her in the background, right?
Yeah.
Tony travels for free. People don't understand this. We had lunch together. I saw Tony before the meeting. I went only one day. Basically, Tony travels 3 hours to get to London in one direction, once a month. His meeting is, I don't know, about $25 Australian. I don't know, the cost. But he travels one way 3 hours, right? He has to eat, he has to probably sleep, or he drives back. it costs him petrol. And I don't think it's expensive. People think he's really ripping people. I don't know, he might have something extra, I don't know. But his books, he was giving me his book for free. I said, no, you won't. No, you won't pay, whatever. So he agreed for interview. I didn't have a good microphone, so I just interviewed him a little bit. I asked him a question. I said, well, can you tell me, Tony, people say you don't exist. He said, no, I never said that. And I knew the meaning. I just wanted him to say that to people to hear.
Right.
But he does not mean it. What he means is the me doesn't exist.
Right.
The me, the self-center doesn't exist. That's just invented. That's same as when people, it's like another label, like being aggressive or whatever. So basically, Tony just does a good job. You have really good, basically you have biscuits and that meeting goes for 3 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's really not expensive. Whatever, 15 pounds, 10 pounds, I can't remember how much. And for 3 hours, you get like a coffee, you get a nice biscuits, and then refreshments, but it's not like a dogma. You get together and everyone leaves. And Tony he said to me, Sabine, he goes, of course, everything is allowed in life, because everything is allowed in this life. Everything will arise. There's nothing wrong with anything. That's what Tony says. Nothing wrong with anything. But in these meetings, he points to people. There is no you, meaning there's no separate you. He goes, everything is wholeness, whole and complete. There is no, you miss nothing. That's like good people, good sense of humor. I just laughed with him. What's better to stop thinking for a little while than laughing? I laugh a lot. So I love people who love joking. It's same with Robert. Robert, like I see him like laughing, and I have to quickly say this, and I won't say anything else. Robert, what I find similar with you and Nisargadatta is that you come from your own heart, and that people say sometimes that Nisargadatta is angry, aggressive. He's not. Like you see what you are, what you might have a problem with. I see Nisargadatta and I see kind of love or whatever it is. Love is a bad word. I don't like using that word because it's lust. For people, love is lust and comes and goes. It's people love and hate. That's love-hate relationship. I see unconditional love coming from Nisargadatta. I see unconditional love coming from you, Robert. When people believe that you are angry because we can't fake it anymore. I used to laugh more. I was more fake before. I always had smile in the past. Now I'm more serious probably. And I had a go. I can't even control it. But it's not, I don't hate when I have a go. It's just sometimes these people need to be shaken to something to get through to them. And it's not, maybe that, I'm just guessing this. Sometimes you need to shake someone. If they don't want to listen, they won't listen. You can't make anyone listen. But as I said, there was openness here to hear what Nisargadatta and Bob had to say. Bob said start from the fact, from the top. He said start from the top, That way you won't have to climb the mountain and scratch yourself and fall down and get thirsty. When you start from the top, you see the lot. And that was enough for me. Right. Thank you so much. I shut up now.
It's different people's styles, I think. Robert, I love your style. I love it so much that, what was it, 6-7 years ago now, I said, I picture a book of your words and pictures. So I've loved what you've shared all along too. I think your style is different than Tony Parsons. I do feel like Tony takes some liberties. He says some things that you're kind of like, wait, Tony, do you actually know that? But I do think he's genuine. He's just kind of speaking spontaneously and putting it out there. That's my perception of him,
Well, I've never met him, but I take Sabine's word for it.
Yeah.
It's a vibe that she's talking about, not so much what the guy says.
Right.
That's what it manifests when he's just living his ordinary life. She's saying, here's this guy, he's a really nice guy, he's got a nice wife, he's genuine, yeah, let me get on that money thing for a minute that you mentioned. See, if somebody wants to give a talk and they just want to cover the expenses, basically, and that's not a profession, there's not a problem with it because they won't get worked doing that. The problem is when this becomes a livelihood, then you have priestcraft, and priestcraft lies. Even if they want to tell you the truth, the incentives are in the wrong direction. They want followers, and they don't want to say anything to you that would alienate your next visit to the website because they get paid for that or whatever, however they monetize this. So I enjoyed the comment before. That's right, I'm not monetizing anything. You can read my book if you want for $5, and that's it. That's the end. All the rest of it, talk or whatever, we're just doing this as humans. So that's good.
It's good you made your money elsewhere.
Yeah, so exactly. So that has validity. Well, I'm retired. This is a time of life when you're supposed to not be working anymore. if I was lucky enough to get to that situation, and I'm enjoying it, but I mean, you know, I'm old. I mean, it's not like, it's not all fun and games. Right. But I mean, yes, I don't have to charge anybody for anything, and I'm not going to. But if I had to do this and get paid a reasonable amount to spend a lot of time at it, I might be able to justify that. That's a deep question. That's not what I'm critiquing. That's not what I've ever critiqued. What I critique is the superstar guru who's got people managing the image and all the rest.
Totally.
Once you get to that, once you're in that league, then you have what John Troy calls on stage and backstage. And he's known a lot of these people rather intimately, you know, hung out with them or had dinner together at their home or whatever. He has told me that very few are the same backstage as they are
Right.
on stage. Now, I'm talking out of school, but he said that in me, he didn't see any difference. And a couple of other people that he'd met were like that. And he really,
I've hung out with you backstage before.
That's
You're
right.
the same person.
That's right. So, yeah, you know, we had that pleasure. That was so long ago now, man. I mean, you know, it's, but yes, it was great being at the beach. Beautiful, beautiful. So, yeah. So that's what I have to offer. And I'm awake. See, and then the people say, you can't be awake because the people who know me understand what I mean by it. They don't think I'm putting on airs. I'm just, you know, I'm in tune. It's not an accomplishment. It just happens. It's what John calls, there's a natural flowering for everyone. Not for everyone. Some people, the seed fell on bad ground and it never got a foothold at all. Other people are just brilliant. It's nobody's doing. These brilliant minds from the 20th century, they really were smart, but they're not here anymore to explain themselves. And so I forget who was saying this earlier, but that's lost. That message is lost. No, it's only a rumor. I mean, Nisargadatta's words, this is what I was saying before, Nisargadatta's words are written down, yes, and you can read them and make what you make of it.
An English translation.
What I mean is these teachers of Nisargadatta, like a Sailor Bob, they were repeating something that they had heard said. Whether they understood it, what was being said is questionable. It's not their fault. I'm not saying Sailor Bob's a bad guy. That's just the way it is. When you hear something,
yeah,
you hear what you hear. You hear what you hear, and you make of it what you make of it. And then if you bring it on to the next person and explain it, it's not what Nisargadatta was saying. It's what Bob made of what Nisargadatta was saying. It's like this game of telephone. You go around a few times like that, and the whole thing is distorted.
Yeah,
it's just rumors.
Bob felt like he got it from what I've talked to Bob before on the phone. I've had the opportunity to speak to him some, and I know he felt like he got what Nisargadatta was saying. But like you're saying, do any of us ever totally get what anybody's saying?
Well, Nisargadatta said no one got him except one person.
Yeah,
Friedman. So I think that's pretty good. I think this is on video. It's definitely verifiable that he really said this. David Godman interviewed him, and I think got that on video.
Yeah.
So that means that all of these people, I'm not saying Sailor Bob's a bad guy. I'm sure he got inspired and felt that he had this understanding and wanted to discuss it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not blaming him. I'm just pointing out that these figures of the past, all we have is what we make of them. No one can ask them a single question anymore. So in a way, Nisargadatta is old news. it's mythological, it's historical. But
I think probably
but we have one another now.
right.
If-
I was going to say probably most people who get to your material have been through Nisargadatta. They've probably been through Ramana. I mean, this is a guess, but they
Yeah.
probably read all the stuff. I think one of the best things about your material is it says, this is your experience that's important. And nobody else can describe that for you. Nobody else can tell you what it is. They can't tell you what's right for you, basically.
Yeah, I think that's what Nisargadatta was saying also. That's what I got from it. This is your world. This is your reality. And he's
Plus,
right.
he spoke so many years. You can take a quote of a translation of Nisargadatta saying anything, because he said so much stuff, and he wasn't afraid to contradict himself either.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
I don't really, what I'm saying is, I don't really feel like discussing these old characters like the Buddha and the Sargadatta, what they meant, because that's instantly controversial. There's this great scene in Annie Hall. You all know this. Woody Allen's been canceled, but he was a genius. He still is. And he made this film, Annie Hall, that's just perfect. And in this film, Annie is standing in this movie line with his girlfriend. And this guy right in line behind him, a real noisy guy with an irritating voice, he starts pontificating on what
Marshall McLuhan.
thank you. The old brain is slowing down, I'm afraid. Marshall McLuhan. And Woody says, God, these people. And the guy overhears him and he says, well, I think I have a perfect right to speak this way. I teach this subject at Columbia. And Woody Allen walks over and he says, well, I happen to have Mr. McLuhan here right now. And McLuhan comes up and he says, you have no idea about my fallacy. It's a perfect line.
Yeah.
It means nothing. It's fallacy. What is he talking about? And I wish I could do that with Nisargadatta. So you bring the guy out, but I can't. So I'm just going to ignore the subject. It's a token for fantasy.
Right.
If you have to get a living person, and if that person has an extraordinary experience and wants to discuss it, you can find out if they're making sense or not by asking them a few questions.
Mhm.
And no one can do that in Nisargadatta or the Buddha. See, that's that. That's why I have a sense of humor about this, Howard, because we're fucked.
You can never ask them questions. You can never see them backstage. You can never see how they relate to each other, how they relate to their wife, how they relate to their children.
That's it.
And as we read their teachings, they're perfect.
Thank you. That's it. That's what Sabine was saying. She checked out Tony and Tony checked out good. That's what she was saying. And that's, I get it, right? Sabine, I get it. The guy's cool. He knows how to live.
You would love Tony. I think you would get along really well, you and Tony.
What I have critiqued is not Tony. I've never met Tony. What I'm saying is that kind of language seems to confuse a lot of people. And so I wish that I believe that he really experiences this. I'd like the expression to move on in a bit, I mean, give some more detail instead of this is all there is and there's nothing else but this.
I think he's trying to thwart the seeking mind at its root. And therefore his attempt is to give it nothing. And that's why people bring up questions and this and that. And it's basically like an immediate shutdown of pretty much all of it. So
Well,
from my perception, that's what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well, I'm inclined to agree with Sabine, though. It's not what the guy says, it's what he manifests, because I had this conversation with Jim Newman, and Jim's a nice guy. He's friendly.
Right. I listened to that conversation and I found it entertaining at least.
So he's not Tony, but he's considered to be a disciple of Tony's, maybe a carbon copy, some people say.
Not quite carbon.
But I haven't met Tony, and Tony might be charming, and Jim has a certain charm, but there was nothing really to discuss. Nothing. In that conversation, I did my best to circumambulate the situation and try to figure out what we were talking about. But we could never agree on any lingo. I mean, if I go to like a bunch of psychologists, we know what the id and the ego and all this shit is, and we just talk about it. I tried to do that with Jim. I gave him every shot, but he wouldn't actually communicate. He only pontificates. And that's a big problem. He's got the answer. See, that's the problem with that line of jazz. And I get that from Tony's rap. He confuses people with that idea that he's got something figured out.
Well, he also tells them, and I just know this because, you know, as I said, he was the first one I read of anything that could be remotely considered non-duality. He also says, I've lost something. You're trying to find something and you're trying to gain something. But he said, really, I don't have anything you don't have. It's just I've lost something.
Yeah,
and
well,
I think, yeah.
Excuse me, but if you're awake, and I believe that Tony is, those are the kinds of things that are just obvious. They're just like a moment by moment description of your experience. And people find that inspiring. I mean, I can do that at the drop of a hat. I mean, my heart is very open to experience. It's ripped open to experience, I should say. So at this point, I have to laugh. And I do. I mean, because this is a very difficult situation we're all in. Very difficult. And until we acknowledge that and stop looking for the escape hatch, I don't really see any way to get a grip on anything, even then. But at least if you're realistic about the clock is ticking, the sword of Damocles is over my head, this body is aging, old age, illness, and death. That's what the Buddha said, and he wasn't all wrong.
Yeah.
Not entirely. And that's what we're really dealing with. See, and all this spirituality bullshit seems to offer escape hatches that the real.
I think it's an opiate. It's an opiate so you don't feel it too keenly, the sense of being mortal.
Okay.
You think I'm immortal.
Somebody made Nisargadatta into Valium.
Sure, sure.
That's the problem.
Good point. Robert, I have a question. Can I pose a question?
What was the question?
Why do you think so few people have had the experiences you've had? We've only met two that speak English that I could kind of verify and seemed authentic. And then there's all the people in India that I'm not quite sure about. But yeah, why do you think it is that all our seeking, 50 years for me, and I still want what you have, what I think you have, because I haven't experienced it yet, so.
Well, no one can have Robert but Robert.
That's right.
But this awakening experience, this altered state, which I've been chasing.
That's your imagination.
Yeah.
You don't know how simple this is for me, and I can't explain it to you. There's no way for one person to explain one's own idiocy and simplicity and childishness and self-acceptance of all that to another person. I said this the other day, I'm going to quote myself. It's not like your chip is over here in the Monopoly game and the guru can pick the chip up and skip ahead to Park Place or something without any of the intervening suffering. It doesn't work that way. That you got to pick up every stitch. Must be the season of the witch. That's what.
Robert.
It's up. No, what I'm saying. Just let me complete this rant. What I'm saying here is, there's no way to know anything without suffering. That's the teacher. in every situation. You will find yourself barking up the wrong alley and you'll suffer and you'll say, oh, gee, look what I did. And that's how we learn. That's how children learn. They run into the wall and bump their head and fall down. That's life. It doesn't end. It's not like Robert Saltzman has transcended suffering or something. I'm in the same boat with you. I just know it.
I'd like to say something about Jim Newman, just using him as an example, not speaking about him directly, but I see in him as a young man who's very bright, and he's making a living by teaching non-duality. I think the thought of him ever having to get a real job might be very frightening.
That's it.
Earning years where people are now developing careers and making money and accumulating some wealth, and he has to keep it going. He's a hamster on that wheel. And I think that the message has to be created and shared in such a way where people keep coming. And there could be a lack of integrity in that. But the last thing he wants to do is stop that gravy train and get a job. And I'm just using him as an example. I've never met him. He might be a wonderful man, I'm sure he is, but there's a lot of people in that situation. And these conversations on these Zoom meetings, Robert, oftentimes we talk about those teachers from the East or those that are sharing Eastern wisdom, like Jim Newman and the lineage that he's representing. But the same thing happens in Christianity and Judaism all the time, where there's pastors and priests and rabbis. They're making a living. And the message has to be geared so that that money keeps flowing.
Well, that's exactly what I say. This is priestcraft. If it's not the second oldest profession, it's the third oldest, whatever. It's up there it's up near the top of ways to not work for a living. Dispensing spiritual advice is a great racket. And so, great racket. And
Robert,
so,
can I bring up one point to what Israel said earlier?
yeah, of course.
When he was saying, I don't have what you have, when he was saying that, and that he's only found a couple of people who have what you have, I think that's the danger of using the word awake applied to a state or a way of being, because some people are going to say, well, I'm asleep, I'm not awake. But to me, your clearest material once again points people firmly and clearly back at their own experience. And it says, ultimately, all you have is your experience, regardless of terms we use to describe it, etc. So to me, that's one of the potential dangers of the concept of being awake. And that being said, I'm not questioning what you're saying or your experience, but I just find in your message a strong thread of turning people back to themselves.
Well,
and maybe that word awake puts some people off, or they think they don't have it.
I get you. I'm short circuiting that because I gave that careful consideration more than once. And I kept trying, but I found no other way to speak of this that would work without saying I am not parroting anyone. I'm speaking about an authentic experience in the present.
Right. So to me, you could just say you're being authentic.
No,
being authentic.
No, that's not all I'm saying. I'm not just saying I'm being authentic. I hope I'm authentic. I mean, I hope we're all authentic. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is there's a certain experience that humans have. We're capable of it. That doesn't mean everyone gets it. I don't know that, but humans are capable of understanding something that I see and hear in myself. And when I look back, I see that there's many other previous humans have come to this same understanding. They express it in different ways. which is basically that the way I express it, at the core, when I investigate, there's no one home, it's empty. Other people have another way of expressing it, but it's the same understanding. It's the same understanding. If I don't say that I'm awake in the present, the Buddha said he was, why shouldn't I say that? Is the Buddha this fictional character that is perfect? Or can we understand that we're all human here? We came from gorillas and apes, and the Buddha
Right.
in that same lineage with Robert Saltzman. No better, no worse. Now, until we realize that, I understand it's audacious to you have to take responsibility for you're alone. This is you. Okay, it's very difficult. I understand that it's challenging. I don't know why that some people can take it or that happens to them and other people it doesn't. I have no explanation for that. But I cannot pretend that this understanding is the same as this blah, blah, cookie cutter doctrinaire bullshit that people are dispensing, which is their defective translation of what Nisargadatta or you fill in the blank was
Sure.
saying.
I would just like to, Nancy had her hand up. Did you want to say something?
Hi.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
I'm sorry I didn't notice you. I was on a rant and my attention was on my own words.
My experience of my spiritual path is that it's like sewing a quilt. And that quilt includes gurus and thinking that the guru is perfect. You know, my spiritual path pursued me. And it's all good. That imperfect view that the guru has something that I don't have. It's, you know, I have come to the realization, you know, I've been ground down because I've pursued so many teachers to the present moment, you know, because I'm just here, just like you say. But I appreciate and love what all these teachers have given me. And it's like, take what you like and leave the rest. And you know, I continue to have spiritual experiences, and I don't make a big deal about it because they come and they go, and that's, you know, it's just organic. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but you know, the gurus, we knew people in the 70s that knew a lot of the gurus coming over, and yes, they said to this person, Sridhar, I'm coming to the United States to make money. So that's definitely, I totally agree with you, but also I may have said it, take what you like and leave the rest. You know, this is for me, you know, so I'm kind of turning it around and saying, I'm taking those pieces of what each of these gurus offer and ingest it, you know, for me. And so I don't know if I made any sense, but
You do.
Yes, you are.
Totally good.
Makes sense to
And-
me. Makes sense to me.
And, you know, it really is ultimately about love. And you know, I actually still go see Amma, who, you know, and I've had an experience of like Muktananda actually one night called me from his curtain
Oh,
in the City Yoga ashram. So I'm familiar with the entire range.
behind the curtain.
Behind the curtain, he didn't have his teeth in, and he didn't look very attractive.
Hubba hubba.
So I went in the opposite direction. But I learned from Muktananda too, and I got Shaktipat from him. And so those remotely from an island off the coast of the state of Washington. So those kind of dichotomies exist in me, and it's really all okay. So.
Yeah, I think so. It's really all okay. I agree with that.
Grist for the mill.
It has to be okay. What choice do we have?
Well, the choice is thinking that it's not okay and spending a lot of time running after a solution.
Yeah, well, that's the escape hatch. And what I'm saying is the wisdom begins when you understand there is no escape hatch. This is it. This right now is what I'm dealing with. If I have a broken arm, Sabine, you're moving the arm better, I say. A little better. Looks, yeah, there you go. This woman broke her left arm. I've broken mine also, and it took me a year to rehab it. And yes, so I mean, so we can focus on these things. This is our life, and not this other attainment that everyone keeps speaking about. See, what I call being awake is a non-attainment. It's the opposite of it's not even the opposite. It's just a non-attainment. There's nothing, you're still here, just as you always were. It's just a slight shift in perspective. And I find that the teachings of the past are not providing that for people. Maybe it does for some people. It sounds like it worked for you really well, Nancy. And it can, but I see a lot of people discussing this endlessly, quoting such and such said this, so that must exist. I say, if you look for it for a while and you don't find it, it's not your fault. Maybe you're looking in the wrong place. Maybe this guy didn't know where to tell you to look. There's a really great story about that. This cat is out at night and he sees another man walking around under this lamppost, making circles and looking at the ground. Finally, he understands this guy's lost something. So he walks over and he's willing to help. He says, "Can I help you?" The guy says, "Yeah, I dropped my keys here. Can you help me find them? I need them, my house key." They search around for 15 or 20 minutes and the helper says, "Doesn't seem to be here anywhere. Are you sure this is where you dropped the keys?" The guy says, "No, really, I dropped them over there, but the light's better over here." And that's what I see in these superstar gurus with the Shaktipat and all that. I don't deny it, but it's pretty, and I'm not criticizing your experience at all, understand me, but it's dramatic. It attracts hordes and followers and all of that, the curtains and all that stuff. And
Baba used, oh, sorry.
so to me, it's a cultural manifestation, like the Beatles or something, the Rolling Stones at the concert. Oh, well, now, you know, this cat's here. You fill in the blank. Now we all have to show up and, you know, change our personalities and be more holy and everything. And it's a hypnotic trance, is my
Baba
point.
used to say, you can get realized in 3, 6, or
Yeah, that was a
9 years.
party line that we used to parrot.
That was his marketing.
Stick with the guru and work your butt off and you'll get realized. And, you know, it appealed to our sense of achievement, our Western, you know, we went from, we don't want any part of your Western society. We're all going to go to India, you know, and we just brought all that baggage with us, you know, spiritual bypassing and the whole deal. And people got really nasty at the end and were carrying guns and, you know, the Rajneesh thing. Wow. If you saw that documentary, Wild Wild Country, what horrible shit they did in the name of their guru. And, you know, people still defend him. I got in a fight with somebody on Facebook because I made fun of him. Oh, he had his Leela, his drama that he was playing out for our good. And yeah, I mean, people were getting killed and poisoned and I just can't, you know. It's not my
Well,
idea.
you're very fortunate to have escaped that situation.
Yeah, well, there was nothing compared to Rajneesh, but they all took advantage of women. It was terrible, I think, and nobody should explain that away. I mean, I said that Rajneesh is just like Harvey Weinstein, and these people freaked out on me, and they canceled me, you know, off of Facebook.
So I'll just say it flat out. Sex without love is a real drag. I've participated in some of it and enjoyed it on a physical level. But when it comes right down to it, if you don't find love, and sex is a good way to get started on that one with someone, if you don't find that, that's very sad. Not that you get to keep it. You may just have the relationship for a year or 5 years or 10 years. But if you haven't felt that with someone, you've missed out. Fear of missing out. It's what drives people spiritually. And yes, and fear of missing out on the human level is where I say we actually can pursue these relationships. That's why I go about it this way, in just an open way, not Robert sits on a stage and pontificates, but I'm just as awake as the pontificators, maybe more. I don't know, can't compare, but I'm awake in the same way that all these people in the past discussed it, the middle-aged Zen cats and everything. I really just don't doubt it, but it's not a claim. It's a way of saying how ordinary this is, which is the only thing I have to, it's the only message I have. It's totally ordinary to accept yourself, and you will see freedom when you do. Not that you have to attain this next thing, whatever that fantasy may be, in 5 minutes or 5 hours from now. That will never do it. It's this moment, just as one is. If that's embraced, is all I have to say, it can become habit forming. And then you're free. I would rather be sick and awake than hypnotized and frolicking. Much rather. I'd much rather be in grief and awake than a happy idiot. Much rather. So what I'm getting at is this is about drink the cup, not evade the hangman. That's not the plan. Plan is drink the cup, right down to the dregs. Then you don't ask about freedom anymore. It's over. That question is solved. Question solved. And I think that's what Nisargadatta was talking about, but he was misunderstood. But I could be mistaken. I just have the same textbook everyone else does. I'm just giving my spin on it. And no one can explain what Nisargadatta saw, but I think he saw freedom. When he got pissed off and told people, shut the fuck up and everything, I think that was part of his freedom. Felt free to, talk that way.
Can Carson or Michael have some input a bit about it? Carson and Michael, maybe? Can...
I have something I can share, although I'm not interested in talking about what Tony Parsons said or Nisargadatta thought, but something that occurred to me one time is I look around at the world and there seems to be so much paradox. Like that's an underlying quality of reality, is that paradox is probably going to be nearby if it's not in your face at the moment. And I thought, now how does this work? And here's what I came up with is we tend to think of polarities as being on opposite ends of a linear spectrum, right? And over here you have good, and over here you have bad, and so forth, and all the different polarities. And we think that the positive over here is as far as can be stretched from the negative over here. And I think that perhaps the nature of reality is more as if this linear polarity is like spring steel. And if you bend the ends around and touch them, that that the positive is right next door to the negative. And that's why this paradox is so prevalent, because the polarities go together. They're not a long ways apart.
It's called the horseshoe effect.
Okay.
Comes around.
So I was just throwing that out there as fodder, perhaps for conversation or comment.
What does that mean in a practical sense? Could you describe a practical example?
Well, what it means to me as far as practicality is that I no longer expect polarities to be pristine and separate from their opposite. You know, it seems like I said this in the first time I was on, good people and assholes are spread everywhere. You know, you'll find them wherever you go. I'm sure that if you go to a KKK meeting, you'll probably meet a couple of good people there, you know, and you go to the highest spiritual place, and there's probably some assholes there that are not for the common good. Is that a fair answer to the practicality of it?
Well, I think the paradox for me is, how could I have received Shaktipat remotely from Muktananda, have a spine energy going up my spine and feeling bliss, and then realizing later what he was really up to. That's total paradox
Well,
for me.
I have a brief answer to that question, just as a psychologist. This is not all encompassing answer. I don't know if there's any one answer, but our minds are much more powerful than we really understand, and they can create almost any sensation at any time. We're very prone to self-hypnosis. We don't like to think so, but those of us who have used hypnosis in our work, I have, will become aware how suggestible we are as humans, and how as soon as an idea is put out there, our mind begins to work on it like a potter works on clay. You know, once the idea is there, it doesn't go away. The brain doesn't forget. It's trying to mold this into its world.
Yeah.
And when you're exposed to these ideas, these Eastern gurus, that's what I was saying earlier, these Eastern gurus were imbued with tremendous authority.
God men, the guru, God men.
But I didn't even know about him when that happened. I had never heard of him. I wasn't seeking it. It just happened.
Well, what had you been exposed to previously that put any of these ideas in your mind? That there even was such a thing as Shaktipat or being inspired? Where does that come from?
The only thing that could have come from was reading autobiography of a yogi in my early 20s.
Well, that'll do it, because that's entirely magical thinking. I've read that book. How magical thinking.
But I don't believe he talked about Kundalini. I don't think.
The point is that once someone tells you there's this other world and certain powerful people have access to it, you are now beginning to become hypnotized. This is how it works.
Yeah, the Pentecostal church comes to mind. That's a good example of
your
this.
ordinary good sense, your ordinary common sense goes out the window, because you are starting to believe that there's this other set of rules. You just don't know what they are. But when they're taught to you, you'll be groovy also. And that's the beginning of this deep hypnotic trance.
Hey, Robert.
Just a sec. This is what I'm talking about, Nancy. We become hypnotized by spirituality itself. And then these people, it's not so true anymore. In the 20th century, these people were imbued with tremendous charisma, tremendous. People rolled over before they even met them. They had charismatic powers like a rock star or a movie star. And they profited on it the same way that the rock stars and the music and the movie stars do. Plenty of sex, underage girl, no problem. I deserve that. Whatever they want. Well, the human being is not set up for a constant diet of that. The psyche will twist easily as it. There's a few people who have withstood it. Take a movie star like Paul Newman. He made it through an entire career without spinning out. He was a powerful guy mentally.
He was also married his whole life.
Yeah,
That's one partner.
That's what we're talking about here. The difference between some guru shagging some bitch in the back room for 5 minutes or a loving. These people don't know anything about love. They just talk about it.
Guys, I set aside time until about 6 o'clock, so it's almost that time. So I need to get going. And
Carson, thank you so much for showing up, man.
you're very welcome.
I really love what you have to say. I do.
Well, thanks. I didn't have much to say on this one.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I got something.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for everybody, and I enjoyed participating with you. And
Take care, Carson.
Thanks, Carson. Thanks.
Carry yourself. Be good.
Yep.
Nancy, if you don't mind, I'd just like to ask you, have you seen the movie Kumare?
No.
Watch that. Watch Kumare. It's a great film. And it just kind of talks about what Robert was saying, the power of suggestion and kind of the hypnosis of ideas and the charisma of gurus. It talks about all of it in a documentary format. Kumare, Kumare.
We'll watch it tonight.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, that's it. There you go.
That's a great film suggestion. That's a wonderful movie. That one really gets to the heart of the matter.
Is that the movie about the guy who pretended to be a guru? He was an Indian.
Hey, don't ruin it.
Sorry.
Don't give
I
any
know.
spoilers.
I haven't seen it, but I know those.
Yeah, that's a great movie. So, Ricardo, no questions from the live stream?
There hasn't really been a lot of questions on this stream. A couple of comments, but nothing really. It's been kind of quiet.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, so tomorrow we have 2 meetings I'm pointing out, and the second one at 7 p.m. is open to everyone. You can find the link if you're watching this or seeing it before then, before tomorrow night. You can just log on and we'll carry on like this. I'll take questions. Nobody asked me a question today except about Tony Parsons, and I don't really know him, so.
Luckily, Sabine was there with all the answers we needed.
No, it's unnecessary, but that's okay. I'd like to hear a bit from, I don't know, Michael, if he's got anything to say. Just if you can share something.
I was just thinking how strange it is that we believe that we can understand anything by putting a name on things. And all things exist only in the naming of them. That this idea that things can be understood. We all know or sense that we have no sense of self, that the sense of self is a mental fabrication. So who is it that would have choice? Is it the brain that decides, or is it just merely reacts according to its programming? There's no choice anywhere in the universe. Once choice is factored out, judgment disappears. We stop judging others, and we stop judging ourselves. Life becomes lighter and lighter. No one knows the method to attain what Robert has fallen into. Robert actually hasn't. His brain has had a beautiful shift in perspective, which is still part of the objectified overlay.
Right. That's right. Oh, thank you so much for that. What a statement. Continue, please. That's great.
We think we're always cutting the distance in half. And it felt that way. For years, I was getting closer. One more book, one more guru, one more something. And all the things I read didn't help. If we cut the distance in half forever, we never get there. There's no there. There exists only as a mental fabrication, as does here. Here is just where you happen to be. There's no such thing as mountains or rivers or oceans.
Mhm.
How tall is a mountain? Is there a line around a mountain? Is there a separation between a mountain and a valley? How tall does a hill have to be before it can be a mountain? There's no mountains. There's no things. There's no separate events. The objectifying mind has to picture frame. It has to snap pictures of events and things. And that's its only coin. That's the coin of the land. Somehow the brain can comprehend that and see that it's all this beautiful overlay, and it's unique and it's beautiful. And I see that it is the gift, the most precious gift in the universe, the only place where awareness has become aware that it's aware. It's the only place where love and beauty exist. In the universe, there's no reason to suspect that there's anything remotely like us. In the entire universe, life never evolves the same creature. We are a tiny window that gets a brief glimpse of how beautiful. We are a tiny window that allows the universe to get a tiny glimpse of how beautiful it is, how lovely it is, how precious human relationship is. With all of its ups and downs, we've all lost people. We've all lost loved ones. We all have a broken heart. That's where we meet. It's Rumi's meadow. We can't get to a place that exists only as one of our own ideas. The only conflict that exists is in the human mind. There's no conflict in nature. There's no paradox in nature. I love you people. I love being in your company. It's so relaxing. Thank you, Robert, for this opportunity.
Oh, Michael, bravo for what a great statement.
Beautiful.
I'm so glad we have that on video.
Oh, this is gorgeous. Yeah.
that's
Shivers.
That's a video clip for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
Ricardo will cut that one out, I'm sure, and just make it.
Put it out.
Yeah. You're speaking my language, man. That's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's right on. These meetings have been so great this way. I feel so happy to have friends like you all that, like my work, and we can talk this way. It's great. It's beautiful.
Oh, like I said, I listened to your conversation with Art, and I fell in love with both of you. The love was palpable there.
Conversation with whom?
With Art.
With Art, yes.
With Art.
That was a beautiful. That guy is so open. It's so amazing, man, to speak with someone like that. It's beautiful.
You were
You have
open
every
too.
opportunity. You just offered every opportunity to express
Ah,
worship.
yeah, it was breathtaking. It was.
It was the opposite of that gap.
Oh my. Yes, thank you again for this opportunity. It's been wonderful.
I'm really touched. We'll have to be in touch more often, Michael.
Oh, I would love that, Robert.
Me too, man.
Thank you, Mark. Agree.
So, any more from anyone? We've come to the end. Great meeting.
Oh,
I wouldn't even try. I would never even try to top that. So,
Thank you, Robert.
Sabine, thank you so much for your words
mm.
you shared.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. It was really wise. It was like, I wish I heard a bit more from Carson also. He didn't get to, I feel I talked a lot myself, but, and from Michael, I just love your words.
Oh,
And
thanks.
Israel and everyone is just, yeah, I don't know, Howard said something, can't remember, it was really like potent, can't remember what it was, but like everyone is so, Morgan, really good. Yeah, I love your insights. It's like, and you, Robert, you know, I loved your actually, I loved your bad gap also, because that's how I got to see you. And I loved your short video that you had there, where you just said, you know, shortly, you know, that you are nothing special and everything is as it is and pain arises and everything. And, you know, it was just like, it was still good, you know, it was perfect video for me without the bad gap with you, because you are, what you say matters. And it's very important
Thank
for
you.
me. Thank you very much.
Just to review that from before, because you just reminded me of it. That's the point to the question was, why do you, isn't it confusing to say I'm awake? Doesn't that create a wrong image? Yeah, that is a danger to it, but the possibility of it is that somebody might say, yeah, Robert's pretty groovy and he's totally ordinary. Then and that's liberating. That's we need to find this out, that these so-called heroes from the past were just guys. And that's all it is, man. We're all human here. It's hard to get. When you get older, it gets easier because the cops look like children and shit, you know.
And the politicians.
And the doctors.
And my doctors, yes.
I love you all so much. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Robert.
truly. So I'm going to let you all sign off because I want to keep the meeting going just with Ricardo to work out some technical objects.
Thank you, Ricardo. Can he hear us?
Nancy and Israel, thank you so much for attending the meeting. Great to see you.
Thanks. I'm glad
Thank
I
you
got
all.
a chance.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Nancy, you're a good sport. You really are. And Kumari is a good film.
She's always a good sport. She's been hanging out with me for 38 years.
Oh my God. I can hardly imagine that.
Oh, the horror. Oh, the horror.
Nancy, you're a strong woman.
Yeah.
You don't know the half of it.
I could say the same of my beautiful wife as well. The patience of a saint.
I wish you would have to.
I want to meet your donkeys too. We love animals. We just
Okay, one of these days, if we get lucky, the virus will be weakened enough so that we humans can travel freely again and visit one another. I have a list of people like that, a short list, but I really want to see them. Elaine is here now. She's so busy, we only got to see each other for lunch. She lives over in the mainland. She's invited us to go over and stay with them for a while. I'd love to do it, but right now can't get on an airplane. So
you ever have any plans of coming back to New Mexico and seeing some? I know some people that studied with that guy in Taos that you studied with, the photographer, the Gurdjieffian, I forget his name.
yes, well, I don't think I'm coming to the States.
Nah, okay.
I hope for not a long time. from now on. Because I've got to tell you the truth. I don't mean this to be political, but I'm a truth teller. I find it scary.
I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I don't blame you, brother.
There's too many weird people running around with strange attitudes, with guns on them,
And guns. Yeah, lots of guns.
I don't really like that. The people think Mexico is violent. It is violent among the drug gangs, and occasionally an ordinary citizen gets caught in the crossfire, and that's bad. But you don't have this kind of terrorized feeling where everybody's nervous. I mean, that's really hard. I love the States. I was born and raised there. I love New York dearly, but I don't think I'm going to be seeing it for a while.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. It's kind of getting, the feeling is bad, especially what if Trump is reelected? That could really happen.
There's a lot of toxicity in our culture, and most of it's kind of subliminal. Most people aren't even, you don't see it for what it is because you're raised in a culture of violence. So it's just something that you learn to kind of adapt to and deal with. When there's shootings every day, big mass shootings, sometimes multiple mass shootings in a day, and nobody sees that as unusual, I think that's pretty damning.
Well, what I'm seeing about my adopted country, I'm a citizen here now. I've been here for 25 years. It's my adopted country. We're handling this virus with such aplomb and intelligence. It's just amazing to me that these other countries are fucking up so bad. And this is a country that doesn't have a lot of money, but the vaccines are here. People are being vaccinated. Nobody's saying, I don't want that because it may have microchips in it that will tell the CIA where I am or something like that. And there's no coercion. We were never forced to be locked away. Everyone was told, when you're in public, wear a mask. When we go shopping in the supermarket, we drive up to the parking lot, we put our mask on, nobody complains. We go in and do the shopping, come out, take the mask off and go home. Nobody's freedom is impinged upon. Nobody's complaining. Nobody's making a big deal out of whether you're vaccinated or not, or if you're wearing a mask or not. There's just no talk of it. It's not, we're coping. We're just citizens. We have a disease in our country. We all get that. And we're just, this isn't the greatest country in the world when it comes to medical care. So we're all just doing the best we can.
It seems there's a lot of entitlement in our culture, probably in many cultures, but people get really offended if they get inconvenienced. And, why me? Why am I inconvenienced? I've heard people break down on like the clerk at a grocery store because of the new requirements because of COVID and stuff. So it's a lot of entitlement is what I see,
Well, these big countries like the US and Australia, they're just out of balance. The government is like some kind of authority, and they're just like got their boot on the neck of the ordinary person in the street. Of course, people don't want to obey orders or anything. Why should they? They've been pushed around too much already. They don't want to be told they have to stay home or something. That's what I'm saying. That never happened here. People cooperated with the procedures. We've never been locked down. We've had nightclubs and restaurants closed down at times, stuff like that, but people move freely. Everyone's allowed to leave home and go wherever they want. And if you go inside, you have to wear a mask. That's it. In public, in private, you do whatever you want.
I need to take off.
I see these big countries, and what I see is it's like a virtue signaling issue. Everybody wants to be on the right side and be saintly and everything, whether you're on the right or the left or in the middle. Everybody wants to be correct, right, and they're all wrong. They're not cooperating. If they cooperated, it wouldn't be that big a deal. That's what I'm saying. This is a poor country, and it's not a big deal here.
Yeah,
it's a deal, but it's not a huge deal. We're all coping.
I've got to take off, Robert, but it's been fun, everybody.
We were closing down the meeting and I got on the soapbox again. I'm sorry.
That's so American of you.
Well,
We don't have donkeys. We got these guys.
wow, that's a nice looking cat.
And we had 5 when we moved here. We're down to 3 now.
Is that a special breed of cat?
No, just stray from LA.
Oh, right. All right. Well, as I said, I'm here for Ricardo, so you guys are going to have to bid me adieu.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.
Yeah.
Good
Very
times.
nice
So much,
meeting you.
Howard. Pleasure.
Thank you.
See
Bye-bye.
you all on
Touch
Facebook.
base again, Howard. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
great speaking with you again. Michael, again, we'll keep in touch. Great hearing from you. Everybody's leaving. There goes Sabine. I know you're going to do it to me, Sabine. You're going to cut me off. Oh no, there goes Sabine.